Hello, I'm Matt, and welcome back to my tutorial for people who don't know how to use a computer, basically. No offense to you, though. Well, learning how to use a computer is a good thing, because computers are used in everyday society nowadays. Computers. And so, in this video, I'm going to be talking about software. In the last video, I talked about hardware, which was the physical part of the computer. So let me just write this as a side note. Hardware, physical. And so in this video, I'm going to teach you about software, which is the virtual part of computers. Virtual part of computers. And so the virtual part of computers is really what makes computers useful. And so software can can go by any number of names. Sometimes it's called programs, computer programs, apps, which are short for applications, which are also used, applications, executables are also another name. And also, some computer programs are useful and some computer programs are bad, and I might get to that in the future once you really start using computers a lot, and especially when you connect to the internet. And so computer programs, they do things. They're sets of instructions. So programs are sets of instructions to do something. And usually they're stored in special computer files called executables. And once I get into file names on computers when using Windows, which is a special program, which I'll actually start to talk about right now. And so a lot of computers run special programs called OSs, or operating systems. And so these operating systems, they're programs that they're programs that run other programs that run other programs. So operating systems are programs that run other programs, basically. And that's my little definition, now, N for noun. And so programs that run other programs. And so they operate, let me do that in a different color. They operate the systems, and a computer system is usually the hardware and the software and everything all bundled together. And so they operate the system. And so common operating systems include Windows, which is developed, which is programmed and made in which turns the written code into the code that the computer understands. Windows is developed by Microsoft, which is a computer software company, R for registered trademark. And then there's also Mac OS and also Mac OS X, which is developed by Apple. And then there's also a special set of operating systems called Linux. And they're Linux distributions. And these distributions are different versions of Linux made by a bunch of different people. So they're different people make Linux. And so it's kind of like a community effort. And Linux is something called open source, which means that you can distribute it and you can give it to other people, or you can get it yourself for free. And you can also see what's inside. You can look at the source code, which is the code that the programmers write, the special code that the programmers write to make the operating system. And so then Windows and Mac OS and Mac OS X are called proprietary operating systems, which are programs that run other programs. And that means they're not open source. So open source, let's take this red color, circle it, and then put a dash through it, or a slash through it, which means they're not open source, which means these guys don't want you to know what's inside. They don't want you to know what's inside their operating systems. And so one of the most common operating systems is Windows. Because it's easy to make new programs for it, and it's widely sold because it's kind of pushed upon the PC market. And so they kind of push it upon hardware manufacturers that make the towers and laptops too, which I should talk about sometime soon. And so they push it on there, which I've repeated a bunch of times. And so since Windows is the most common operating system, I'm using Windows right now. And so Windows, it uses Windows on the computer screen. So let's make a white line, or a white box. This is kind of like an introduction to Windows. And so you have down at the bottom here, which I'm drawing kind of a crude representation of the version of Windows, because there's a bunch of different versions of Windows. The version of Windows that I have right now, which is Windows XP, which was released 10 years ago, but is still widely used by many computers and many people. And I'm using it right now, like I just said. I seem to like to repeat myself when I make these videos. Let me color this in and make it prolonged and boring for you. And so this right here is basically how you get access to all your programs. You know, you click on there and there's a menu that comes up there. This is a special button. But then, most operating systems today, they use Windows, which are these special boxes that I'm drawing right here. And these are how the programs are run. These are the programs. My program. And so the programs, and you have your special area right here, and you're receiving data. So whoops, black, you know, data. And so this is a program. And so most computers, they have 3 buttons. The exit button, which you can close a program and stop it from running, which basically ends the program, and so you can do other things. And then there's the maximize button or the minimize button. And so see how this program only takes up part of the screen space? When you press on that button, this program will take up all the screen space except for the little kind of bar down at the bottom. And then you'll see the resize window button, which means like you can make it smaller and put it back to the size again. And then there's the minimize button, which minimizes it to an icon down on here. And so you have my program right there. And so that's basically basic software right there. And software is, it's read by the operating system. It's a special file that's read by these operating systems. Circle that, make it even more messy. These operating systems. These operating systems. And so then it's run by them, and it's represented on the screen with a window, which is where the name Windows comes from. And remember, Mac OS and Linux also have these special windows. And so software in the Windows, let me draw another Microsoft Windows window. See, color that in, color it in. I don't have a lot of time here, and I don't want to bore you, so I'm going to color that in really quick. And so, most of the time, oops, I had a nice color too. Nice sort of skin-like color. Oh, undo. Okay. I guess I'll just have to deal with black for right now. And color that in. And then of course you have your buttons right here, your exit button, and then your maximize button, and then your minimize button. And so most programs, they have special input, where this is called a text box. Text box. And the text box, you can write text in there, obviously. And how about I write it in this green color, since it'll be black on black. And so you can write short pieces of text in here. And then there's also buttons. And these buttons, you usually can click on them. Remember your cursor. I'm going to draw it in white because that's what most cursors look like today. In today's computer world. And so when you click on that button, and it usually has a text on it like submit, when you click on that, it sends this data into the computer, and it's either saved to a file or it's processed, and then you get output again. And so another basic input is larger text boxes, whereas this smaller text box, you can only put one line of text in it. These text boxes, you can put multiple lines of text. And so these multiple lines of text, they can be saved to a file and whatnot. And so that's another good thing. Hopefully I'm not moving too fast for you, is files. And so files are basically how you store information on the computer, and then you can retrieve it later. And so files are written on a piece of hardware, which I probably should have explained in the hardware video, but hey, it's good since we're talking about software and how things are saved on a hard disk. See the word hard in there again? And so this hard disk, it has a bunch of magnetic plates inside, where this little magnet with an arm on it, it comes and it writes all the little information in magnetic dots. It magnetizes the plates. It magnetizes the plates and stores information like that. And so that's where your files are saved. And so your files can be any range of things, like text files, or image files. Let me make a little drawing here, maybe of a sea with a ship and a sail and a little person on there waving hi. And so you can also have images. and also videos, which are, you know, sometimes they have a little, looks like a film strip, and there's the play button in a circle. And so videos, undo, videos, and also you can have all sorts of other files, like our program files, which are executables. And also on your computer screen, you see things that look like these. Look a little bit like those. And those are folders. And so files and folders, they all have different names. And so let's say that we had a text file, you know, text. It has a little icon there. And so it'd be text.txt. And you're wondering, why is there this weird little txt here? Well, the txt is called a file extension, and that basically tells the operating system, when you click on it, it tells the operating system that you're gonna open it in the program that can open text files. And so that's a basic text file, extension. Say we had an image file, the little sea ship. How about it has hydrofoils, which is a new technology, and little guy saying hi. And so image, and images are kind of tricky because they can have all sorts of different extensions. Some images have PNG, which means it's developed by a special software group that makes a specification for the certain image and how it looks and how it's written to the file. And there's also JPEG, JPEGs, and you usually have the dot and then a little asterisk saying that it can have any name before that. It's called a wildcard in the computer world. And then you also have JPEG, and then one that's not so common is TIFF or TIF, but you don't have to worry about that right now. And then also you have .gif. And so all of these are image extensions. Sorry for the messy handwriting. The YouTube, which is a video sharing website, which is on the internet, which I'll explain in a later video, has a limit to these videos, so I want to make it a limit to the length of the video, so I want to make it as short as possible. But hey, who cares? It's you, and it's probably going to be put on a VHS tape or a DVD anyways, so if you don't know how to use a computer, you can learn how to use a computer. And so some video file extensions are .avi, .wma, and let's see another one. There's tons and tons and oodles. Oh, MP4, .mpeg. And I also forgot to talk about music files. And music files are like songs and all that, so they have a little icon with a musical note, usually music. And music files can have any number of extensions. The most common are WMA or MP3. You may have heard of MP3 players. They play this specific file type. MP4, which is a better edition of MP3. There's also open source, like the developers, they share what's inside it, OGG, Ogg Vorbis. and also oodles and oodles of other formats and all sorts of things. And then in the next video, I'll talk about Office suites and applications, which is kind of like text files, only they're special text files. So I'm Matt, and I'll see you in the next video on basic uses of computers, and I'll teach you how to use Office suites and applications.